Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Coin. Today's guest, Locke Brown, is the CEO and founder of NuID. NuID has raised $4 million, and they are creating the base layer infrastructure to allow people to authenticate and log in to services across the internet. They have two distinct profiles or business entities. They have the centralized enterprise business. We talked about that. And then they have the decentralized entity launching a token very shortly. And we talked a lot about that. We talked about the implications of identity, why identity is so fundamental on the internet, and cryptography opens up doors to facilitate new methods for identification using social networks, handling things like debts. How do you reassign assets, reassign ownership in that case? And we discussed other implications of identity. So this was a fascinating conversation. We covered a lot of ground, and I hope you enjoy. Here is Locke Brown. All right, Locke, I'm excited to chat with you. We had a fun conversation, pre-show conversation. To sort of set the foundation, set the framework for the conversation, I'd love for you to just describe the different aspects of the business with NuID, between the foundation and then the crypto endeavor, and how the overall vision is sort of set using those as pillars.
Sure. Yeah. NuID, been around 5.5 years now, which is pretty wild. But I guess I'll go all the way back and just say that, I've been into investing, and crypto is kind of my two passion for a while, and I guess crypto more recently away because of just kind of technology generally. I was that crazy kid that was mining Bitcoin in 2013 in my dorm room, and was a nut. And then so I've always been following the space. And then I actually went after I graduated to Claremont in 2014 up to Seattle and worked in investment management for Bill Gates' family office. And so that was really great. And I actually co-led with the COO there, a blockchain working group internally just to stay up on the space. And so that gave me kind of a lot of, freedom, and to basically kind of get back into following that space more closely than I had for a couple of years. And then, so I guess I just kind of go deep on interests and things. So, I was just kind of thinking about a million things, having fun. And it was in 2016 that I met this guy, Nolan Smith, and he was in Seattle at the time. And we ended up just kind of going down rabbit holes in my basement. I got a bunch of whiteboards and just this whole kind of cliche, this cave startup kind of thing. It wasn't a company or anything at the time. Then kind of at the end of the year, that year, everything just in general that, we had been thinking about, that I'd been thinking about. And for a long time, I'd been thinking about, wouldn't it be great if I could, divvy and split the equity in a home and into some sort of digital, deed of sorts, or representation of that. Because this whole process is a slog, to actually be able to transfer, you have the whole title system, and I won't go down that whole rabbit hole either right now, but everything ended up really coming back to identity. And we had a lot of ideas we explored and stuff, but when you get to the root problem of a lot of things, at least that we were finding at the time, problem was that there was no good representation of identity, both for people specifically, but for devices, for anything in the digital world, right? And this is something that goes all the way back to the beginning, kind of really computing and the internet, public key infrastructure. Obviously, we rely on, but we don't use public key infrastructure. We don't use cryptography in terms of PKI for authentication, identity representation online. Which is why, you probably, like everybody, are clicking forgot password links or getting emails saying your account has been compromised, or just some disaster, that all the time. And so, started thinking about identity, and especially with, kind of going deep on blockchain space, because, I love just trading crypto and stuff too. It's always been fun. Actually, I wrote my thesis in school on Bitcoin market efficiency and price predictability models. So that was always a passion. So I'm saying all this basically to put the context out there, but I just kind of like, there's this like primordial soup in a way of, thoughts with all these things coming together, that not only presented this kind of problem in a light that, ended up really exposing that identity isn't really the problem as much as authentication is, because, uh, you can't have a, digital representation identity online that you can rely on or trust or use for anything, um, if someone can authenticate themselves as you, right? Like that. So really it's the layer below that, the authentication is where kind of that foundation doesn't exist in a way that, can be relied on, right now in terms of what we use and have. And so what was interesting too is that, kind of stumbled into that issue, in this blockchain investment crypto world. And the solution also kind of presented itself within that world, which is interesting. And so, we kind of ended up, uh, combining these concepts of, zero knowledge proofs, which is a, subject of cryptography, right? And like Schnorr's, non-reactive zero knowledge proof to kind of, point to as a, something that played a big role in understanding that. And we leveraged that at the beginning. And coupling that with a distributed ledger, something that was, no single point of failure, and ultimately immutable and distributed, right? So, and what came out of that was this idea of, and I thought about it a little bit differently at the time. At the time I was thinking about, abstracting identity, from devices to you, it goes wherever you go. And that's still, I guess, not inaccurate, but really, you brought, and I'm sure that, self-sovereign identity is a thing that, some people might say of yesteryear, but is, the concept of user-owned data, user-owned credentials, is ultimately, what is going to allow, however that comes about, for a solid, digital identity, model. And so I'm going to not go down like identity models broadly here, but long story short, the idea of coupling these things basically allows for not having to trust anyone. And what we really do ultimately is give users the tools to actually be able to leverage cryptography without the risk of screwing it up, right? Like, I'm sure you hear horror stories of, someone with Bitcoin and, they forget their private key, right? Like, done, and no one's going to, you don't want to, you think passwords are bad. Imagine if you had like all these little seed phrases or, a huge string of characters. So cryptography is not easy. And that's why we don't use it, right? That's why we have this bad password system and centralized storage, databases at every service. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so what NuID ultimately does is, provide, user owned credentials, but without at all disrupting, the existing, workflow and experience that exists. So we started out, our first actual solution or product. So we launched this, beginning of 2019, it's a enterprise SaaS solution. It's, we call it trustless authentication, right? Authentication as a service, which authentication as a service is not great because it's like ass, but, but that was always, the first step is to actually create a protocol, for authentication where, credentials are, referenced by what you can think of as a public key. It's really the public parameter from a zero knowledge proof. But someone, registers a password in a zero knowledge fashion, the public piece of that is put on the blockchain, out there forever. And then you go to any device anywhere you want, and you can then authenticate that, with the secret, in this case, a password. But, our protocol supports any sort of factor, whether that's a local key, a biometric, whatever, what have you. But it allows you to go anywhere and authenticate a credential that you registered on blockchain. And, that actual private piece of it is never stored anywhere. So you eliminate, the need for passwords to ever be seen, stored, anywhere, transferred over the internet. because like when you register a credential with a NuID protocol, that password is never transmitted off the device or stored locally. Literally is used to generate this proof the first time you register a credential, and then subsequently you just authenticate it. And so for companies, they no longer have or face the liability of storing user data or credentials. They don't have to deal with it. So it eliminates the possibility of a wide scale credential breach or getting hacked. They're getting hacked anymore if a company uses NuID, and allows users to not even have to worry about trusting anyone, storing their secrets. Now, that is like the very like layer one benefit. And that's what we realized, like, let's try to sell this because we had to do it anyway. But where this goes and what that was necessary for is the portability of it, right? Portable identity. And what, you could think of or out as like single sign-on, I guess, for the internet, where really a user has one identity representation or as many as they like. You could spin up, multiple, and they could be uncorrelatable. Maybe you have a different public key that you don't, associate with anything else. In this case, an identity for like banking than you do like porn or whatever it is you do, so it's fully user controlled, PKI based, decentralized. And like, even if NuID disappeared, the protocol still works, the credential still works. So you don't even have to trust us. We're just providing an API to make it easy to use. And what we're moving to provide this is the platform protocol for users to have that representation, but have these attestations or other data associated with it. Like the first one, a core one being a verified identity, right? So say you create this credential, and now there's this identity model where I can use that to, for all my services. So like 5 different accounts I have use NuID for authentication, which doesn't, if a company uses NuID, you can deploy it in literally hours. It's a API, REST API. It literally just replaces the existing login workflow for authentication. Their users face no added inefficiency. Like you don't need a NuID app. Users don't even know or need to know they're using NuID. It's just literally the current form, a better authentication solution that's more secure, and like companies don't have to worry about it. And but what we get from that is we get users creating these credentials, right? And so as more companies use it, and what I'll talk about in a minute, the next kind of phase here is getting the egg, if that's the chicken, is then getting users to know they have that credential, know they want to manage it, and say, hey, wait, these 5 services I use all the time use NuID. I can use the same credential, all of them now. And then maybe one of those is a bank or who knows, like an exchange for crypto, and they've verified your identity. So then they'll be able to say, hey, create this attestation that the user can accept that says, this credential for Mike Townsend, we verified that it is associated with Mike Townsend on this date. He authenticated it using these factors. And we went through this process for KYC, whether it's social security number and public record, whatever. And then you can actually authenticate other services to verify that, so that they no longer actually have to ever ask you for that personal information and do the verification process redundantly. They don't have to pay to do that. They could say, hey, we trust, Charles Schwab or whoever it is, in terms of their KYC or identity verification process. That happened within, some arbitrary, last 6 months. Boom. We're not going to pay the $2 to $40 to verify their identity. We're not going to ask for their social security number and the 5 public record questions. We're just going to say, hey, you can authenticate this credential you already have. We accept it. So what you and I think hopefully I'm being clear here, but what you start to get and build there is a record and a history of verifications, right? So you build this robustness of tied to a specific credential, right? Which then becomes the verified and accepted. The more it's used, the more of a history it has, the more attestations it has, the more likely it is that it is legitimate. And so you start to build this, legitimately represented and warranted single digital representation of yourself, kind of like the blue check mark, but for the internet. And it's not just Twitter that gets to give it to you, right? It's the world. And it's tied to a credential that literally is just public key infrastructure. No one controls it or owns it. you just, have a public reference parameter sitting out there on a blockchain that anyone can go and just say, like, I don't know who this is, but somebody out there, is able to authenticate it if they want. So
That's
I'll
great.
stop there.
Let me just make sure I clarify one point. So what's the information that me as the user would provide to the protocol to validate I am me? There's not a password. Is there an encrypted key on the device? So as long as I'm logged into the device, or?
So authentication is separate from identity verification.
Correct. Yep.
So,
understood.
And so are you asking specifically about the authentication side?
Authentication. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
Charles Schwab is a really good example. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the authentication side, like, let's say you go to NuID's developer portal right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just see create an account, like enter, the username and password. We use NuID, obviously. And what happens there on the back end, though, is that password that you just inputted on the device you're at as a user, it runs the math and generates what's called zero knowledge proof. So you can think of it as, it's not this, but you can think of it a little bit like running like hash algorithms, right? Mm-hmm. And NuID provides client libraries and all the, pre-baked integrations on our developer portal for anybody that wants to deploy it, into their site, app, web app, whatever. So make it easy. And so that's all like built into the browser, but the user just sees normal standard experience. But what doesn't happen, which is what currently happens today, is there's the password. So in today's paradigm, 99, out of 100 times, what would happen is that password would be hashed locally if they're good, sometimes not, or actually half the time not, and then sent to, our server, and then stored in a database with username, in one column, password in the other. Maybe it's hashed. It doesn't matter. I mean, LinkedIn got hacked a few years ago, and that hash password, but 86% or 87% of their hashes were already broken online. Like, so the hash of a commonly used password is already, so it doesn't really help that much. But the point of the matter is like, you're just like giving it to them to store, and then it sits there and it's only useful for that service. And then they have this huge database and it's the number one most valuable thing like now for, hackers and attackers to get, because it's a perpetuating cycle. If you steal this list of everyone's, credentials, that's how you get to steal more shit, because people were used faster. Mm-hmm. Right? So then you can go unlock everything else. All of these compromises happen because of a leaked or broken compromised credential anyway. So it's this terrible cycle. But, so then when you subsequently authenticate yourself, in today's paradigm still, you just provide, the password, it sends it over the wire, it compares it, and if it's the same, it's like, okay, great, you're authenticated, right? Mm. But NuID totally rewrites how that happens. So on the NuID system, you get to the same page, create an account. What happens though is on your device, that password is used so basically it goes through, say, some like hashing, and all of this is, totally like on open source, so you can read all that online. Nothing's like secret here. And we actually have patents. We actually got granted patents on this in the US, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was shocking actually. But what happens is it generates this proof. So basically you can think of it as the output being there's a public parameter, long string, right? And then your password is just destroyed. So it's not saved there, not sent over the wire. It's just like literally used to just generate some cryptography. And then what happens is so then you can just post that public, parameter, basically a public key on blockchain. And then when you go to, authenticate yourself subsequently, when you put in your username, whatever, form that's going to take, that maps, and that's just kind of what that's going to map to that, that block transaction that has that public parameter in it. And then to authenticate it, so like it'll send that, public parameter to your device. If you provide the secret, in this case, a password, in this example, you provide the secret that was used to generate it, that only that secret can be then used to authenticate it. So you provide that secret to it, and basically it will generate that proof again and just tell you it checks out. If you don't provide the correct secret, it won't check out. And so there's no comparison happening on any database. And so you're never actually sharing your secret with anyone to be stored. So it doesn't have to be a password either, right? So like, any factor that has a, repeatable, output value. So whether that's a local biometric, iPhone, fingerprint, unlocks private key, that private key can be used to generate the same exact $0 proof in the exact same way. And so you can have multiple, these ZK zero knowledge credentials, and you can, as a user, you'll be able to set string them together and be like, hey, like, I'm really paranoid. I need 10 fingerprints, 3 passwords, and my mom to like call in. But like, and you should be able to set that level of security and facts if you'd like for things. And so really our core, what we do, what our value here as most fundamental level is this protocol that is, allows for all of these things, right? And you can use it however you want. So it's really just, $0 proof authentication, coupled with decentralization, right? And so for the public parameter.
I was going to ask you, is there any way if someone forgot that password, everything's happening locally. So it's taking the password, it's taking the biometrics, it's converting into a hash and used in the device. How could someone screw themselves over here? Because I'm sure people.
For sure. Well, so, ultimately, right, if someone comes and puts a gun to your head and you put yourself in a bad situation and says, give me your password, I'll kill you, like, you're probably going to give me a password, right?
What if you completely forgot, if you forgot it entirely?
Yeah, sure. So if you forget your password, then you're just going to rely on the forgot password workflow of the service you're interacting with that uses NuID. So what will happen though, in that is like, so say you're at your developer portal and you happens all the time. Forgot a password, click the link, you get, we use email, just forgot password. You can use magic link. Some people use that. Then I'll get that and I'll hit reset password. And the way that works though, technically is it actually will like blacklist and kill, just, no longer, accept the credential you had registered, and you have to register a brand new one. So you just have a newly created credential. So you're not resetting it. You're just saying like their system saying, we no longer will authenticate that credential. He just registered a new one.
But they have to believe the service receiving that request to reset the password has to have this is obvious to say, but I can't reset your password. And then they send it to me because is that because of the device ID, like NuID installed on my device?
No. Great question. So, no, this is actually a point of trust in that service, right? And so there's a point of failure there, right? That service could totally just say, they could just like not care at all. They could let someone else, someone else get your email. They could take advantage of that. Now what's interesting though is like, even if you use that credential elsewhere, right, you would only be screwed with this service because it'd be that service that's saying, hey, we're no longer going to accept that one, reset it. But so fully aware of that, I'm going to go into 2 things here though. One is where, I see this going, because there's a solution here and we have plans for it. But I'll first say that, this space, you can't go from 0 to 100 in one step, right? Like passwords are still here. Anyone, 5 years ago when we started, people were telling me like passwords are dead. Passwords aren't dead. We still use passwords. Like you have to work with what exists. You have to make it ultimately frictionless, right?
Right.
And that's why, we have, you don't need a NuID yet. We're making it so that we actually have people want to use what we're providing, and it's going to have incremental efficiency gains and, illuminate, I think, the problem, and it's going to get better and like it'll get closer and closer to the end state optimal state in the future. But it'd be great if everyone, tomorrow decided, I want public key infrastructure. I want to maintain my own credentials, manage my own identity, and, let's do it. That's just ultimately not happening, right? We're not organized as a society like that. And so, and also like the way we have a kind of chicken and egg problem where like, if I could walk out on the street, if I was targeting just user to say, hey, like we've got this great new way to, authenticate. Someone's like, great, we're going to use it. I'm like, nowhere. Like that doesn't, right? We first started and focused on getting, solving a big problem, that existed, for businesses, right? So that they use it. And then inherently on the back end, like you're getting all these people creating credentials and they don't even know it yet. So you kind of have this silent onboarding, right? And then as more and more organizations use authentication, you get to a critical point where then it becomes really valuable for users because now they have this portability option, right? And so that's one example.
Let me just quick introduction. Is there a similarity here between what you're saying, the value of that network, to like Facebook kind of first made this popular with the Facebook Connect? Like, not to say the technology is the same, but similar benefit.
Well, that's Federated, right? Sure. So that's centralized. That's like Federated. Essentially, like they control it. Facebook controls it. They could shut you off. You have to trust them. And they ultimately like see your data, get your data, right? Right. Like there's no anonymity there. And we can get to anonymous not down the road, but I would say that on the convenience side, yes. In terms of the user experience, at these stages that we're at currently on both, they had the right idea. I mean, if I was a multi-billion-dollar company too, I would shove it down people's throats.
Right.
So it makes sense, and I think that it is highly convenient, right? But here's the difference: is you use log in with Facebook for everything. Facebook is just like getting rich on your data and knowing everything you do, how you use it, when you use it. They own your experience, right? With NuID, the opposite's true. No one can shut you off. No one can see what you're doing. No one has that data. You choose what to share. And if you want, you could choose to use different credentials for different services. And they wouldn't be correlatable by email like most logins are now, or through your Facebook profile, right? So while Facebook solved a convenience problem in the short order for money and without regard to the user or the long run. And we're playing the long game here and figuring out how to solve problems in continuous short orders to get there. And before we lose it though, I do want to circle back and answer your question on the forgot password thing, right? Many steps down the line, you'll be able to have social reset. This is something I'm really, really excited about. And it'll actually allow for, so I'm just going to plant this seed here. We can get into it life of it. Is that your NuID credential, because it's PKI, can serve and be your private key as a crypto wallet. So you can secure any crypto asset with your NuID credential exactly as you do an account login. So all assets, whether that's access, identity, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, all can be based on your NuID like credentials, your cryptography. And so what this allows for is this idea of social reset and T, which is our token that 5 years running now, we're finally about to launch. And it will actually be like the first recoverable crypto asset because of the following, which is where you could say, hey, and this is because, we're an identity company. You could say, hey, if I say I forgot my, my private key, my password or whatever to this credential, and you could pre-specify, contact my mom, my sister, and Locke, ping them. And if they all authenticate, ping their NuID verified identity, their credential, they call you, be like, hey, Mike, are you trying to reset your thing? And you can say, hey, you could set it however you'd like, but you can say, 2 or 3 of these people need to authenticate their NuID credential that they say, yes, Mike is trying to reset his credential. And so then you're like, yeah, mom, yeah, Locke, you can authenticate that. That's me. They do that. Then that will, on protocol level, blacklist, that old credential will allow you to actually register a new one to that public identifier so that you can recover any crypto asset, any account without relying on any service specific workflow.
Interesting. And would this be, would you see this being one of the problems in crypto I've thought about and haven't heard a good answer to, is when people die and they have their crypto keys stored in a safe, and it's like people are going to die, right? So what happens over the next 20 years? How do you cover that?
I don't know if it's funny or not, but I'm facing this problem in real life. So actually I've had 2 friends pass away over the last year, who both participated in our private pre-sale of our token and have this allocation of key, the token, and they're dead now. And I actually I got a letter from the lawyer of the estate of one of them saying that I need to sell this key Bitcoin thing and write a check tomorrow. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do that legally. And so that's a long story, but it's a great question. And so ultimately, you could never like force this or require it like on a protocol level, but because we're building an ecosystem and ultimately like anyone can build on NuID, anyone can use it, and then these like standards will emerge. But ultimately, like you should, just like you should in real life, have like the equivalent of like a will, right? Or like a beneficiary, something. And so like and so we've baked this into the plans now, and because like my verified credential will have an attestation that like will say that I've authenticated this. That's like this asset goes to this identity, this credential. So I'd be like, my sister Carlisle, I know her credential, like this is her verified identity. She's authenticated to me, and I just preset what goes where. And what you would end up having out of that is when someone dies, and say like hey, it's like say society at that point, whether it's 10 years from now, 5 years, who knows, says that 50 people that have interacted with this identity need to like verify that he's dead. And like when that happens, the smart contract will just like automatically like reallocate those assets to where they go. And so like estate's supposed to be handled like done. There's no probate lawyers and estate lawyers and like this family feuds, right? This is like, no, they explicated it. It's explicated, like literally authenticated, verifiable by them. And it just like takes care of itself. Like there's no, it's immutable. There's no fuckery in there. Like, and so now on the flip side, like someone may just like not care and not explicate it. Just like there are plenty of people that die these days and don't have wills, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that like we'll have policies at the time that say like some amount of it goes to the government, or what have you. But I think that ultimately like it's good to think about these things as how do we handle that now in society? Like when we transact for without the digital piece, and how like what problems do we face when we handle it the way we do now? And do we have technology and will the systems that are available to us, can we use those to make that system better? And so if you think about it that way, it's just like better version of a will, one that's like not a note that you have to go searching through old folder for, but one that's literally verifiably executed and authenticated by their socially accepted digital identity that they've maintained for however many years.
Yeah. And I could see you guys effectively creating you build the technology, of course, but then you also create the guidance to help people make the decisions. Like some people have bigger people have different social graphs, right? Like, and that's, you might say all my voting power is in, my mom, and that's all a living family member. Or, maybe it's like, I need 2/3 majority of these 10 family members or some combination along that.
So you cut out there probably a good 8 to 10 seconds.
Let me just repeat that. So like, I think of it as like the guidance to help people structure the decision-making mechanism. Like it's, 100%, my mom, if she says I'm dead, you can take that on. Or it's like, 2/3 majority of these 10 accounts. Yeah. And it's like, you can help people guide that setup. But I think that setup will be increasingly more important and top of mind to people, especially as Bitcoin and crypto just gets adopted by a wider demographic of people.
Absolutely. And so, that's something that I don't take lightly because, I also want, so like, so I'm very much, principled and care about like ethos, principles, and like like what you stand for in space because, it's very easy for, someone is building a system like this that gets, begins to get used and accepted to like essentially try to take advantage of it, right? Or guide someone to do something that's just, on an agenda that benefits some company, right? And so I think it's really important to guide via education, to guide via, allowing people to learn and see what it is that they want, right? And so that's why this is a slow process, right? That's why, we didn't abide by the, fail fast mentality of Silicon Valley, right? You were mentioning yourself, it's taken us 5 years, right, to get even to where we're about to launch, our like the consumer side of things. And ultimately it's it's not a race, but if you want to build a foundation for giants to stand on and build a robust infrastructure that can serve as a utility, be depended on, by a society, it has to be done right. Period. Absolutely. From the ground.
Yeah.
No cutting corners and all that. And so I love exactly what you said and suggested, but I don't want to ever find myself in a situation where we're pushing through or rushing people to do things too quickly, because ultimately, people need to understand, why they're making the decision they do when it comes to things like that and identity. And so, but we're absolutely, we had conversations, 4 years ago about just on the password side, just on the authentication piece, how some companies require your password to be certain names, certain characters, we would suggest and have we were gonna create basically standard policies that we'll say this is a bad policy. You should you can do it, but you should know you can consider using something more strict,
Right.
So I think that educating people why they should care about something, make it easy to care about. Not everybody needs to know what a hash function is. In plain and simple way, and you shouldn't need to know anything about cryptography to still be able to get the benefits from it. So I think you're absolutely right. And just I would advise people to write at will today in real life, we very much intend on. So give me to your point, there's so we're about to go into this next phase, and it's super exciting. It's a long time coming of launching the user interface for actually managing these credentials and managing your assets, your keys, which is why the token is called key API. So it's kind of a play on words here, and then the keychain eventually down the road. So we're going to be launching an optimized ledger specifically to store the public purpose parameters. So key will be a native token to that. That's really down the road, but and I'm won't go into that right in a second. But long story short, we're going to be building this ecosystem and giving the tools to the users so that you can say, hey, I want my banks to use this credential, and they need multi-factor, and then I can just use this password for all my Reddit or whatever stuff, these accounts, and then to be able to access my wallet, I need this, and within all that will be exactly what you're suggesting, which is educational material, right? Hey, don't, and you could, this stuff's open source and open course. People can rewrite their interfaces and all that if they want, but we'll provide default, easy to use, easy to understand tools and interfaces where it's hey, you might want to consider, making this more robust or verifying this identity, or you might want to consider, creating a social recovery for this, because if you lose this key right now, I was talking about call mom or whatever and tell them to authenticate this. You need to set that. And so we'll make sure that we're not going to set people up to fail. Right. It's just I was talking about this recently, with some of the people that pre-purchased key in our token sale, in the private sale, they're oh, I don't know. Are you sure that this wallet's fine? Because we're getting, public key addresses for distribution of tokens coming up and stuff. And I'm talking to people we're here to help you. We're not going to allow, we're not just going to say, hey, you send us a bad address, you lost your key, so you're done. So there is a care to it. Ultimately, people at the end of the day, and ultimately you're hitting on, and this whole point is kind of at the crux of why things are the way they are now, why authentication identity just doesn't exist online. And it's because at the end of the day, people do need to be responsible for their own identities. Just like you can ruin your good name and your reputation as a person in the real world, right? Not only that, but you need to be responsible for your private keys. And people learn that the hard way in crypto, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 million Bitcoin gone from however years ago or something. But that's not easy right now. And so what we're really doing is we're creating tools to make cryptography accessible by anyone. And so
I was going to ask you, what do you think of the rise in popularity and use of the password managers like Dashlane and 1Password? Do they have any, from your perspective, any vulnerabilities? If people are storing their crypto keys in there, is that an issue?
Oh yeah, that's an issue. So I will say, this thing is everyone in NuID is forced to use LastPass. password managers are a godsend, and make life easy. They're great, because they basically just make a disaster of a current system a little bit less of a disaster, right?
Yeah.
They also, however, in terms of like what I think is like, they perpetuate the problem. And what was the LastPass? Like, actually, just we left a LastPass just actually. This was maybe 2 weeks ago. Came out saying that they got hacked, which is like, I wasn't even surprised. I mean, so a guy that used to work at NuID would always say, "There's two types of organizations: those that have been hacked and those that don't know it yet."
Wow.
And so,
Really?
oh, absolutely. And I could talk about that a lot too, because we actually had a side project a few years ago that we spun off into a operating joint venture subsidiary, Silent Services in the cybersecurity space, that did a lot of like cyber due diligence for like M&A transactions and all this stuff, which was cool. And thank God I'm no longer helping lead that. But oh, it's a disaster. It's crazy. I mean, so I wasn't surprised at all, like the last time I was like, it's not if, but when. I mean, that stuff is like not secure and is borderline impossible, or a fool's errand to think that you're going to, keep it secure. It's like, maybe it is today, but it's not tomorrow. I mean, ultimately, like, it's an oxymoron. If you think about it, just share a secret. Like, if it's a secret, you shouldn't be giving it to everybody to just save so they can compare it in the future, right? So, and it's just like a bad system ultimately. So it's not surprising. But that said, me remembering, 140 passwords, and if they're secure, there being like 20 different random digits, right? Like that's an impossible ask.
I think a lot of people do store on like LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane today for their crypto keys, and they might have like even a ledger. But like, do you think that's a big mistake? Is that like kind of just the best we have right now?
I would say crypto keys, like you're talking about the seed phrases. That should be treated kind of like your most precious items, whether that's in a fireproof safe, in your basement or in a safety deposit box with your bank. If you actually have anything that you put around there, yeah, I would say absolutely ill-advised, unless it's, if it's like funny money, like, again, it comes down to the value of it, right? Like,
right. Assume it's high value.
Yeah, high value. Like, if my livelihood, if my house, if my like deed in my home, and like my retirement nest egg, whatever, was being backed by a private key, one, I would hope that it's just my NuID, my identity back in it, which would be a string of multiple. I mean, ultimately, here's the most optimal authentication combo is just two factors. It's something you have and something you know. So whether that is a fob on the keychain plus a password, or that's, a password plus, my phone, me doing my biometrics unlock, private key on there, just setting something to require one of each, something I have, something I know. That's what you want. That means like, I can be knocked out, no one's going to be able to get what I know. And no one remotely can get what I have. So, that's the dream state right there. So like, putting all your eggs in one basket is usually not a great idea for everything, unless you're just like, big risk on kind of guy. And I sure as hell don't trust password managers because they're also literally putting targets on their heads, right? Like, so, I think that's a really terrible idea, is my short answer.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Seed phrases included. And so you'd go like ledger or
seed phrases are the keys to the house, right? And keys to the castle.
Yeah.
And these wallets and apps and whatever, they're not just saying this to be like over the top when they say, don't screenshot this.
Yeah.
Don't print this. Write it fucking down. Ultimately, like, you should, like, your master seed phrase to like the credential that you're going to have validated and let that serve like overly and genuinely as like what you'll say is my name, like that your representation of you. You should just have that seed phrase, if it was to be a seed phrase, memorized.
I wouldn't trust myself. I almost would trust myself least on memorizing it, because if I don't look at it for a couple of years.
you have a safety deposit box for anything, or
Yeah.
safe at home, or do you have like organized chaos and shit just hidden in the mess? Whatever it is today that you keep, it is your method for the most like valuable thing that you need to secure. That's what you should do with like your most valuable private key or seed generation.
Yeah, I kind of think it has opened up a whole new. It's like, you know, the accelerated bank robberies the most was the car, because people could. There's some famous story of this where they like would just, you know, do heists with the car, get away in the car, and all the horses are like way in the dust. And it's like, I kind of think Bitcoin and just the whole idea of the first wave of decentralization is like, here's my public address on chain, not my home address. And then you know exactly how much in there. And if you know my public address key, now all you gotta do is know where I live. And then there's like, you know, there's many ways to do that. Like many of the deeds for all the public property purchases are tied to your name in the public record.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, man.
Oh man, there's a whole can of worms there. I mean, we're gonna need like at least 3 days of nonstop talking to it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: Do you feel like the end zone here is like something you have, something you know? So there's it's like, is it bioinformatic? It's got to be tied to your body, right? It's the only thing you can't lose. I mean, really, it's the closest.
Yeah.
thing to you. Retina scans.
I mean, so there's a couple things here, right? So I'd argue something you know is better, because if I have biometrics compromised, I have to sear off my fingerprints or have my eye replaced like Tom Cruise did it, Minority Report. And that doesn't sound great. Whereas a password, I can blacklist the old one and register a new one. So, I mean, actually, this is, I don't know if you're familiar with the OPM hack some years back. A bunch of our 3-letter acronym agencies, a bunch of Americans with top secret clearance, multiple thousand of them, their biometric data was compromised, and they all lost their jobs, lost their clearance. Some of them died. In India, not long after that, the equivalent, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's the equivalent of like their DMV. I don't know what system it is exactly, over the name of it in India, but some multi-hundred million Indian citizens, they had been using biometric data, right? And that got compromised. And unlike, again, a password, like your fingerprint's your fingerprint, and that's
yeah,
fucking change.
Yeah.
If my fingerprint's compromised, if that data's compromised, like I'm sure as hell like I'm not gonna be using this anymore. So biometrics are not as happy-go-lucky, fun, and the future-proof as some people might suggest. And that's why ultimately passwords are not going away, like as one whole thing,
because they're not that much worse than bioinformatics, anyways.
Well, that's right, and the benefit really is through that. So for so what's interesting, and these are two other things. So like a biometric, there's something that's static, like a fingerprint, retina scan, whatever, is one area. But then you also have like behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what is your typing style? How do you type your password? That is a like measurable.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there's all these areas of and liveliness testing and checking, right? Like video, not just face scan, right? So there's all these different forms of authentication factors coming out, and I love talking into these newcomers. Like we have a partnership. We've explored some zero knowledge biometric stuff with one company that they do facial recognition stuff, right? And now going into details of it all, like we were going down this path of, okay, so like, how do you represent a face, right? Ultimately, so let's say, for instance, they create, the system breaks down a face into these components that outputs a string of, say, like 500, digits, right? And because a password, is discretely repeatable. So like, I have a 10-digit password. Those 10 digits will be 100% exactly the same if I enter it correctly every time, right? If your face is getting scanned by different cameras and different light and all this, the data output of that algorithm that's processing that image is going to have a delta to the one time that it's compared to. So you're not having a discrete matching something, right? So, but you need to turn it into something discrete ultimately, right? Because it's a computer processing. So So say it breaks face down into 500 digits, right? Well, the way it works is somebody specifies based on some arbitrary, like what feels good enough, 90% match, 95% match, whatever that threshold is, to consider it like, yeah, that's probably, that's them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's all fine and dandy. But, what we were exploring is, and, this will just kind of plant the seed for where I'm going with this is if that, output of say a face scan, can order those digits so that, if, scan B varies by say, 10% from scan A, that differentiation is all say at the end of the string. So their first, 450 digits, all are the same. And then all the variation comes after, right? And so like if I was trying to verify my face against yours, it would probably like have the first 40 or whatever, 20 digits the same. Because we're human. We're both human. Like a bird might get one digit. It's like, but and then the rest will be different. So if you have ordered output like that, then what you could do is you could literally use that the NuID protocol as a zero knowledge biometric as a register as a credential and have truly like user owned portable biometrics because you could just have it say you only take the first 450 digits of this 500 digit string, register that as a private key to a zero knowledge credential.
Right.
And then that's repeatable discreetly.
Right.
So, and look, I'm not saying that's the answer because there are like, there's concerns there, but that gist, is kind of cool. So
Yeah.
sorry if I went off on a tangent there, but my point is, I guess what we do, like we don't touch, factors.
Right.
Like,
You're taking those as inputs. You're taking the results of the hash of that.
we support any factor. We support, NuID, will allow you to, compose any combination of whatever factors that you can come up with out there. And, we're all about the users being able to have, ownership of, like guaranteed of, and having interoperability. And that's really important, having that, identity representation and data that you want, associated with it and crypto assets, everything, online to be able to be useful, in everything that you do. Right. Like, which is the beauty of public key infrastructure. Anyone can use it. Everyone can use it. It works. And so that's,
how big a,
we know what we want. Like, I love all the nation stuff, but like, that's not what I'm good at. Like, so like, we just support anyone that's coming up with the next best way to do it. But I'll tell you this, I would be wary about, one, you got to think about like, where's your, private keys now. Now, again, NuID makes it easier, right? Because you are your private key, right? With NuID, you don't have this long string or seed registration, but you have your credential register, so you don't need to worry about saving that on the LastPass or whatever. Like your identity, like if you use a biometric on your iPhone that unlocks like your private key, that's registered as a zero knowledge proof. Like ultimately, like you don't have anything to remember. That is your private key.
Mm-hmm.
So like, well, we're like kind of making it again. When I say making like cryptography easy, it's like you don't have to deal with that like whole like, go do I put this piece of paper in my safe deposit box. Now that being said, I want to make clear here because people, I didn't be called out for this. If I have my entire like life's like net worth, value, everything I care about digitally represented, which inevitably is where we're going, right? And like whether that's government owned, Facebook owned, or I get to own my own, which I prefer the latter, obviously. Like we're going that way, and ultimately, like someone's going to be responsible for it. And if you don't care enough to be responsible for like your good name and all of the value that you have in this world, then you're gonna like the only like other possibility is that you're trusting someone else to take care of it for you. And so, if you want that to be Facebook, great, that's your choice. I don't, and I don't trust them, and if I trusted them today, which I don't necessarily know that I will in 10 years, because I don't know that they're gonna have my best interest. So like ultimately, you don't want this stuff centralized. You want a protocol. That's the beauty of standards and open protocols. But I will tell you that I personally, in managing it for myself, would want one really complicated seed generation phrase or something like that, some long, like, something very secure, right? That's not just like the, a 10-digit password, as my like master key, master credential, that, essentially protects my like your identity. And I would like, I wouldn't tell you publicly on this podcast where I'm going to keep that.
Yeah. But you would
Yeah.
would it make sense for people to write that, like just writing it in a safe, or just like, I
Yeah.
guess whatever you feel most comfortable, right? It's personal preference, whether you feel like you want to.
I mean, you can put it somewhere that
Yeah.
you're going to know where it is. Don't act like, 10 years from now, you're going to remember like what,
Yeah.
like college notebook, you stumped it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've lost multiple, private seed wallets of crypto wallets, but I have like all the hard drives.
Yeah.
Just in case I ever want to. But, yeah, I mean, like, where do you keep your birth certificate? Where's your social security?
Yeah.
Where's your deed to your house? Like, keep it with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And maybe, the idea of like not all your eggs in one basket too. Maybe it makes sense to like have a
I
combination.
mean, that's what I'm like. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I have like probably, for multiple crypto wallets, for instance, I have it on paper, more like with copies. I have like, my like same with the deed to my house. Like, and I have one like literally like by my laundry machine. And then I can have like, some wallet keys are in like certain notebook back pockets, and then I've got stuff in a safe. It's like, so like whatever. Again, like if you're someone that tends to already cognizantly take care of managing these things, you're gonna probably be fine.
Yeah.
Because you manage them already. If you like aren't used to like caring about these kind of things, if you're kind of really like, I don't know where my social security card is, I don't know where my birth certificate is, like, then like you should consider the implications of not caring about these things. And you should consider like what happens when, when you lose your private keys. It's not just like some funny play money online from when you're buying drugs or something, but becomes, the title to your car, and maybe like the socially accepted identity, right? And someone steals your identity and then, files a tax return for you. And like, people don't really think about identity theft until it happens to them.
Yeah.
And so, you don't think it could ever happen to you until you have a really bad time.
Yeah. I would imagine.
So I think that, yeah. Oh my God, there's just horror stories out there.
Yeah. Identity theft.
Yeah. I mean, and whatever that really means right now, because like identity theft right now is just like, somebody authenticating themselves as you with a specific service to do whatever it is they're doing, but like, I mean, people, oh my God, like, this is a disaster. I mean, it's not even theft, but I have an identity issue that's outrageous, right? Like, so the IRS literally thinks my birth date is a day different than it is. And like, it's called this huge problem. It's a disaster. And they're like, they send you on some, unending escapade with Social Security Administration to try to fix it. And then, you'd go down this like 17 different like phone number, like, Pat, press 1 for this or that, and you get to like 17, it's like, goodbye. And you're just like, okay, that's cool. And then they're like, I was like, literally, I was like, so convinced, I checked my birth certificate. It's like, but how are these two systems, how is the birth certificate system, the Social Security system, and the IRS database, like, not referencing the same truth?
Yeah.
It should be the same birth.
Yeah.
Because they just claim different things.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like,
yeah, that's
there's
great.
no synchrony. See, that's the fragmented, centralized system we have for everything identity related. Every different service maintains their own record, and it doesn't matter if it differs from another service. And so you've got to deal with all these independent, accounts that don't talk to each other. They don't have a standard, model, right? So, and that's what we're doing. We're creating a standard model that for when I say interoperability, I mean, it allows, me to take my identity with me and say, I'm me to any service, and they can like, they don't need to go buy like a NuID software package to be able to reference it, right? It's like literally public key infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's the kind of like the open code of the internet that we've always had that we haven't used for like literally what it's best for.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think the point you made with the social is where I find it. Well, number one, I think it's fascinating to have the ability to choose the different preferences that you want based on how important what you're storing is.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is really interesting is using your social network in a in a programmatic predetermined way to access your identity. Like that's really interesting, because it's like, that's the thing ultimately that you care most about, that you probably trust more than anything. It's like, I trust, my mom a lot. I trust myself a lot. I trust my mom a lot. But what I trust even more than her is the sum total of her, my dad, my brother, all the people together. So like, even if I get in a terrible fight with her and she wants to take all my money,
if they stab her, it's going to be
right, exactly. Like if 7 out of 10 people coordinate together, my closest people in my life, that you like, I probably should have it taken away anyways. Like I don't know. I just like whatever I've done at that point is almost so bad.
Like the world would have to be out. But you have to authenticate the request. They can't just go do anything,
right?
Unless you've authenticated that request too. So I think it's I think that is the valuable piece of it too. And it's interesting to your point too. It's like, if you think about it, it's like, it's the solution's identity, but that system that you just described, right, that we've been talking about, the social network, requires a system of identity to exist, right? All those people, your mom, they have to have an owned digital identity that they can authenticate in order to actually authenticate that request for you, right? So so you've got to get the ball rolling. That's what we're doing, right? So we can't have all these, like, if we try to come out and just roll, the end game out at the beginning,
yeah, too much.
You'll never get
it. Yeah, totally.
And that's when I say bridging like Web 2 and Web 3 to Web N, and it's also bridging like the crypto libertarian individual grassroots guy with the investment makers, right? Like the enterprises, and truly having a system that just like straight up is more secure, more convenient, easier, and better for it. Like, it needs to be something that just solves people's problems. And so, that's where it starts. And then as you have people use it, you unlock, I mean, I can't even, if we had another hour, I couldn't even tell you. I've got a deck. I have 2 decks that literally, talk exactly about the implications of, identity enabled services that we don't even think about yet, that will be able to, be unlocked and we can have as a society once you have a system like this, once you have dependable identity, like then you're e-voting, right?
Right.
And the efficiencies are insane. So
yeah, it does. I mean, I'm sure you think about it all the time. So you probably think like, is this, if I'm in your shoes, I'm thinking like, am I really working on something this important? But it does feel like the cart ahead of the horse.
That's weird to think about.
It's like, well, really the cart ahead of the horse parable is like, we see the upside potential of having a decentralized world, but you have like, I think you're right on taking your time, because you have to get it perfect, because it's the most important thing that everything else builds on top of. Like all the potential that people talk about Web3, and there's a lot of criticism now, it probably spurred by the fact that the price tag.
That term is bastardized. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, the criticism is because the development has been slower than people may have thought, and the hype has been over. Yeah.
But no, I think it's too fast right now. And then that's why, I mean, it just has to be done right.
Yeah.
If it's going to work, like, shit crumbles when you build on shit that can crumble.
Right.
If you're building a skyscraper, right, and you want to party on the 200th the top floor, or have the penthouse, you better hope that foundation was fucking solid. Like,
right.
You have so many things built on it, and if that's a house of cards, like, you don't even think about like the foundation. You just expect it to be there, right?
Right.
But you go Flint, Michigan, like, it would suck to get like lead in your water. You want to trust your utilities.
Right.
Like, you want the faucet to have clean water when you turn on. You want your again, I'm off the power grid, but you want your power to be on, your lights on when you can live. Like, and so I say, and I view what we're building as a public utility. At its core, and as a public utility, as utility companies were meant to be, and this has gotten kind of bogged and slogged by bureaucracy, but like, verifiably, like, all the books are open, the code's open, like, it needs to be able to be checked if people want to, obviously, but ultimately, like, I mean, like, man, you don't know how many times I've been told, like, got to get to market faster. Revenue, like whatever. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
This like with authentication, we're not building like, Farmville version 4, right? Like,
yeah. I'm surprised you're even interacting with people. Yeah, because to me, like,
you can't.
I don't know. I don't consider myself nearly at the level you are technically, but at least I understand that what you're building is so foundational to everything else that I would like, don't invest in this if you think we need to get to market super fast. Like, it's just.
Oh, I am like that. I mean, and I've definitely pissed people off, before in terms of just like, pushing something backward. But I'm like, why internally? I was like, well, why would I like do this just because like you're in a hurry? Like that, like this again, wait, we're not going to sell ourselves again. Look, I say I play a long game and I play to win. And I'm stubborn on vision and I'm flexible on the journey because ultimately like, we're going to take the path that's going to get us there. And it may be a long, windy path, but ultimately, if you cut corners, you're not going to have that foundation to rely on for yourself. And again, with authentication and shit like this, like you fail once, you're done. Like this can't fail. Imagine like, imagine if someone hacked our login. Like NuID, we deploy NuID, developer portal, and someone who's like owns it. Okay, like you don't recover. No, you're done. Like you fail once, you're done. That is a game of perfection. This is why I love the game like Geometry Wars. It's like. You fuck up once, you like it's over. Like it demands perfection. See how long you get.
Yeah, how many times you have to crack? How many times you have to crack the safe? You could try 1,000 times. You crack it once, you're in. It's like all trust is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and like right now with PKI, it would take like your average computer, I think 11 or 12 billion years to like crack one of these.
Is quantum computing like an actual concern or is it just too distant?
No, because then without quantum, no. So like. So modularity is huge for this. So not only does it need to be perfect, but it needs to be future proof is what I call it. Meaning, if like we could just hot swap in the protocol, if the community, if the world's like, this is a good idea, then we just like upgrade, live, take this, hash algorithm, put this one in, put in quantum hash algorithm. So like if quantum comes around, like it's not just the attackers to get it. Like we'll just be making quantum complex cryptography, models. So I'm not worried about like people say you should be because I'm not going to still be using like SHA-1 when we have,
yeah, true.
Yeah, but
you're not going to fall asleep for 20 years.
We'll be upgrading at fast, like, with the technology. So everything's like hot swappable or upgradable modular components, right? And so like, SHA 256, which is like what the world uses right now. And that's what Bitcoin uses. That's what hashing algorithms typically like that's your standard hash algorithm, right? That society accepts because SHA-1, someone found a way to like make it less secure, so we upgraded.
Yeah,
and the world uses the upgraded version now. So like when inevitably, we have quantum computing and faster computers, even maybe before that, when that becomes like what we as society deems as like too risky, it would take little time to be attack brute force. We just dump it to the next level, like swap in the next one.
Totally.
Which could just be I-12. Yeah. So I'm not worried about that. Ultimately, like if that is the only
like big risk there is like if somebody's just covertly working on this for so long, like if the Chinese or like aliens come down, they're like, guys, you could see you using SHA-256. Like I'm taking all your Bitcoin and go back to my.
We just fork it and say, nah.
Yeah.
From that block. Your own community did with ETH Classic.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that guy, microchip is like, no, let's rewrite history.
Yeah. It's almost like that's probably how it'll splinter. That's how it'll fork.
Well, that's I mean, that's ultimately, if you think about like smart contracts and code and stuff and sources of truth being a blockchain and code about all this, it's like, intent versus execution. Like this is what we have like courts of law for and judges, and at the highest level, Supreme Court judges today. And ultimately in the crypto world, blockchain world, decentralized world, the community is the judge. And if 90% of people say, like that was a bifurcation of intent versus execution, we just say, no. Like, we're not going to uphold that you just took advantage of that. We're going to go right back to the split second before you, smarty pants, just like hacked our shit. and we're going to fix that little error loophole and say, your world where you think you have all of our coin, no one cares. That's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to just like pick back up from there and like fix it.
Yeah.
And, or the community, like sometimes, right. And we might be about to see this with the ETH 2.0 upgrade. It's going to be really fascinating. Sometimes like ETH Classic, you know, back in, I think it was 2017, I would say, when a guy hacked one of the first Dowels for like $250 million. I was watching this live in time, and then, you know, a large portion of the community, the biggest portion, was like, nah, through that, like, we're gonna just like literally go back to the block right before he did that, because the people that were kind of in charge had a bunch of their money taken, and say, we're gonna fix that and say like that's invalid and continue to change from there so that he doesn't get.
Oh, that's
but there was a whole, you know, subset of the community that still exists today, that I actually very much align with, in thought a lot, which is that said, hey, no, this guy did it. He didn't break anything. He didn't hack anything. He just found that you wrote your code wrong. Your contract literally just put the wrong number. Like, it's like the contract was written as it was and executed as it was written, but whoever wrote it just didn't write it to execute as they wanted, as they thought they intended to.
Right.
And so this guy just literally just did what the contract let him do and executed on it. And they're like, he gets to keep it. We support that.
Yeah.
And so there was a split. And so then you had ETH Classic, who said he gets to keep what he, like, you know, discovered. And we're maintaining that as true in history. And then the other side of the community, the other one. So you end up with a large enough, you know, agreeable communities on that bifurcate and split on what, you know, should be like what the record shows in the history of like time. You can have two parallel versions.
Well, that's almost, to me, that feels like it's like an on-chain government bailout, where like on-chain, like the free market, right here by parallel, right? The free market operates in the banking world. And then they say, well, we don't like this massive downturn that's happening. Government's going to come in, intervene. But the thing is, like, off-chain, we all have to just go along with it because we can't just like fork the world. And I think the same thing but it's like different on chain, where like you can be in the one community, you can be in the other. Whereas it seems like you can head to a trajectory where you can just fork, join a team, and then pick your team. And then like, because even now, like direct democracy, in the democracy today, 51%, like the left votes some guy in power and like we go that way. There is no forking. Like you can't do it with that.
Right. Now, so I agree with you, unless they're both strong enough to persist for a long time, but eventually it's most likely one dies out. It's fascinating still today, though, having seen, like, I never would have expected that ETH Classic continues to persist as long as they have and maintain that. But like that, I think that, but like I said, it's like the Supreme Courts when you have true, like that societal level communities, a large enough one that has support forever. You know what I mean? That you actually create this bifurcation so it can only be for like the biggest things, right? Because like ultimately, like, you know, I could say, hey, well, like, I don't like that, you know, somebody got my Bitcoin, so I'm going to fork it. But it's like, then I'm just the only one by myself on this fork that means I'm delusional. I live in my own world and my reality is the good reality, but no one else is in it.
Yeah.
You know, then you're the crazy one.
Yeah.
So like, it's got to be you know, so it's really only these rare occurrences. And it happens when there's a real thought process, right? In terms of to
give me your reaction to this one. So say decentralized Twitter, we're all on it. It's all like cryptographically blockchain built from the ground up. Then Trump joins. Trump says some shit that some people don't like. And half the community is like, ban him. The other half's like, don't ban him. And it's like, well, we're going to fork. One side's going to ban him. And then everyone else is going to go on like Twitter Classic. Right?
Yeah. So I'll cop out by saying Trump should have just literally made his last tweet. I'll be tweeting from my website, donaldtrump.com from now on. You can read what I want to say there and no one can filter me.
Yeah. I mean, he probably just wasn't, you know, he's not like tech savvy.
Well, but no, I know. But I guess my point there ultimately is that like, Twitter is a company that's privately owned, right? Like it is a company and they can do whatever the hell they want. It's not a public utility. They don't have an obligation to like give everyone whatever they want.
Right.
And so Twitter can do whatever the hell they want. And if you're just upset that they're not doing you what you want, then you're like the guy, you know, in the nicest restaurant in America without shoes, telling people to get the fuck out. Like,
Yeah.
you don't like, sorry, no shirt, no shoes, no service, get the fuck out. Like, it's like,
Yeah, I agree.
you abide by the terms of service. So decentralized Twitter doesn't make sense to me, because decentralized shouldn't be a company. It's got to be a protocol, an infrastructure, a public good, right? And so like, that's why it's so like the key foundation. The NuID is a company that helps make it easy to access and use if people want to use these like API level services. But the protocol is the protocol, and it's out there,
Yeah.
for what we're doing. It's a technology. And so I think that it's important to know what you're buying into, right? And that's why I think decentralized Twitter is really, if you break it down, it should be just a name service system, like, where like you can say whatever you want tied to like, your identity. If people, they want to follow it, like, great. Like, and whatever your interface is to that,
Right.
great.
Right.
Twitter can make the perfect copy, of the user interface, that just allows people to like say what they want from their like public key and figure out based identity.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you don't have the censorship. But if you were someone that like wanted it, you could have this like, an overlay and say, filter out people I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't want to see anything said by, Republican, whatever you want. You can make it, you could choose to ignore anyone.
Right.
I will say though, I think a very valuable note related to that is, the concept of like trolling, and stuff. If you had verified identity, right, that you followed anywhere, took with you, I could say, say I go to some random forum or whatever, Reddit, I could say, I don't want to see any comments from someone that's anonymous. Like, I only want to see comments by people that like will tie it to their like good name, so that then you have accountability for stuff. And that in itself will make trolling, less popular, like, because like you just get ignored and like you can't like kind of like,
Yeah. I've thought about this too. I think you could also I think trolling is like tier 1 shitty behavior, but I think tier 2, tier 3 is like physical threats of like real violence and doxing. Like, here's Locke's address, I could figure out his pet, like, here's all the most intimate knowledge about him, it's on chain. I think you could like bake it into the protocol to have like almost a jury of the peers, where there's like 12 randomly selected people of the community that, show up and they cast a vote. So it's not mob mentality. It's like randomly selected, distributed, something like that.
That's exactly what basically like and I'll just put this teaser out there. It's like, the Key Foundation. What we're launching, we're actually a week from today. I think it's Monday. Yeah. We're actually having our first like, offering IEO, of Key public sale. And this has literally been planned since like 2017, of our token, for each other. Like, we're launching basically I consider that the start of the new identity ecosystem, which is open for, anyone to develop on, use all the tools, everything. So, but the foundation side of things, whole point and mission is to, educate, plant the seeds of thinking about things just like that, so that the community can, begin to, allow for standards to emerge. Because, one thing I just want to say is like, top down standards creation is not a thing. That doesn't work. It's not a standard. True standards that persist, have to emerge through utilization and being used and becoming a actual accepted standard. And so they need to be right? So like, I mean, who am I to say that it's like, a jury of 12 or whatever it is, but I want to get that conversation going, so that like what work, like, so that we can start to have the kind of optimal, solution for those kind of things ironing out, emerge. And like what we built is the most fundamental foundation, like, well, I guess no computing electrons, maybe that, but we have built a new layer, on the foundational infrastructural level, much kind of lower than what a lot of people are thinking about these days, to enable this really. And then that all starts with getting PKI into people's hands. So that's a great point. I'm trying to figure out how to like not go down the rabbit. All right, I want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's so relevant, right? It's like all the trivial shit that people fight about is like, okay, if you just boil it down, ask 5 whys, get to like the root of where it's going to go. Do you follow Bology at all, or any of the network state stuff?
I mean, short answer is yes. But What did you say? Biology?
Biology on Twitter. But
Sorry. No, not really. No.
I only say because it's like everything we're talking about. He's just recently come out with this book, and he like does a bunch of podcasts, and it's a lot of forethought that goes into this kind of thing he describes, and it's like very much it's like how current societal structure, organizational structures like mesh with the technology that's we're currently capable of and building out. And it's like what the implications of that are not random. They're massive, but they're not random.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds right up my alley. I actually look forward very much. I kind of feel like I'm coming up for air, and that I've lived like under a rock by design for at least a couple of years now, if not many years. And have had to like, with sadness, give up, pay attention to some things that I either used to do or would like to do. And very much, have either recently or am soon to be kind of closing out, certain eras. Like we're kind of at a inflection point in a way, of, well, at least for me, where my time goes, and I'm getting to kind of come up a little bit more than where I've been. You know what I mean? Like, 6 years ago, I was sitting in a basement with 6 whiteboards doing under math, 3 hours a night. And then, that's not what I do today, right? So things have changed dramatically. And I keep looking forward to, engaging with thought leaders and people that have put a lot of thought into some of these, what the implications are, and like some of the, thought, experiments that need to be done to arrive at, thinking through like what may be the optimal, either procedure, method, process, solution for these kind of individual, things that need to be solved and take care of, whether that's what, like the jury on chain, or, the wills, that's what the signatures, all that. But I would also contend that it's like we needed a platform for that stuff to be like adjudicated, right?
Yeah.
Didn't arbitrator philosophize about how it should be all day, but like, how do you reconcile what is with what should be, right? And like everybody wants to tell you about how things should be. Things aren't how they should be, And it's like, okay, well, like first, I think it's important to like understand why things are the way they are, because they are. Things are the way they are. That's just fact. And like, if you think they should be different, how do we reconcile that gap? And I think that, I feel like there's so many things that should be different, but we need an avenue, and our current, internet, the version of the internet that, we use today definitely hasn't been, I guess, ready to allow anybody to go and have a medium to actually have like productive conversation on these kind of things, and in a way that allows them to put it into action and used, right? And crypto, the advent, I mean, it's happening. It's all happening. It's all part of the process. And like, it's awesome to see how, prevalent crypto, I'm not saying cryptocurrencies, NFT, everything, like people are tuning in, and I think people are getting more aware. I think that like it is all happening. And it's really fascinating to see. I mean, it's funny, like, people looked at you weird when you said in Web3 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, they're like, oh, you're selling monkey art. I'm like,
Yeah. It's amazing. The pendulum swing, right? Thesis, synthesis.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
But it's a process. And I think that, we'll see that I look forward to actually spending more of my time in that arena that you're talking about. So I'm going to look up and, probably enjoy looking into.
Yeah. I'll send you out. Locke, where are you online? Are you even going forward? Are you going to be tweeting, writing?
So it's funny, like I probably engaged on social media maybe all 24 hours in the last 5 years plus or more. So I really don't have a big online presence. I posted once about inflation last year, and 2 years ago. And I'm lockebrown.com. That's just literally a funny. But I do look forward to starting to publish things there. I've made that a goal for next year, is to start sharing more. I've been really just like head down on stuff, and haven't engaged too much of that with I don't have Instagram. Well, I guess I technically do have one, but I don't. It's been years since I logged in. But it's not that I'm against that kind of stuff. It's not been something that I've dedicated back to. But I do look forward to actually. I have a lot of thought pieces that I think I'm just now getting to where I'm excited to share. I'm the kind of person that's kind of like, or at times in the past have been like, who am I to say like this would be that way or whatever? But no, there's definitely things that at this point, I could talk to anyone in the world and justify exactly why I feel the way I feel about something and point to why that is. So no, I think that in the next, starting next year, it'll definitely be on my website, and whether I publish it, it'll, on other mediums and Twitter or whatnot.
Love it. Well, dude, congrats on all the progress so far. I really enjoyed the conversation, and hope to see some of the stuff that you do put out there in the world.
I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I had a great conversation, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're working on something really important, so I think you're doing it the right way, man. And hope you have it back.
I appreciate it
back on one day.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, hell yeah, yeah. No, big things. And I'm glad I started this. So yeah, great chatting with you, Mike. And you're done anytime.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.